Hello, I'm Craig Miles, and this is the Yes Way briefing. And today we're looking at free GPP and NTNs, which I'll explain to you shortly. So, title of today's webinar is Free GPP and NTNs: What Every Senior Leader Needs to Know. This is targeted at decision makers who need to get up to speed with some of the terminology involved in telecommunications. So, as I said, I'm Craig Miles, Craig John Miles. I've added my middle name because there's also a cricketer called Craig Miles, and which is great if you're interested in cricket. But if you're interested in finding out about free GPP and NTNs, it's just to avoid confusion. So, briefly about me, I founded Yesway Communications, which is a small telecommunications services business. I'm also a TEDx speaker on using satellite telecommunications, in particular direct-to-device low Earth orbit satellites, to help achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is concerned with providing quality education to all with a target date of 2030. I'm also a teacher and former geostationary satellite reliability engineer. Free GPP and non-terrestrial networks, or NTNs. So, to be clear, NTNs are short for non-terrestrial networks. So, whatever every senior leader needs to know: how global standards are enabling next generation connectivity. And yes, I've already introduced myself. Let's go to the next slide. So, what is free GPP? Right, well, it's a global standards body for mobile connectivity. The first standards it came out with were in 1998, and it's been producing them ever since. For mobile connectivity, it's concerned with mobile technologies such as 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G. 6G being the latest one being worked on. Partners include, because it's made up of a number of organisations, ETSI in the EU and ATIS in the US, among many others. Right, so the free GPP we've established is an organisation. It ensures devices, networks and vendors, hardware vendors, work together for common standards. It works behind the scenes, which is why a lot of people haven't heard of it unless you're in the industry. But it's crucial to global technology, and we'll find out why. So let's first look at what are non-terrestrial networks. Because it's all very well me talking about NTNs, which is short for non-terrestrial networks, but what actually are they? NTNs, a new connectivity frontier. So when we talk about NTNs, these are networks that aren't physically located on the Earth, if you like. So things like LEO and GEO satellites. Now LEO stands for low Earth orbit, and the most well-known LEO constellation, which is a collection of satellites that you've probably heard of, is Elon Musk's and SpaceX's Starlink system. There's also geostationary, which are further away from the Earth, larger satellites, and they typically will beam down to a certain area of the Earth, which is known as a satellite's footprint. So if you imagine the Earth and someone shining a big flashlight, or torch as we call them in the UK, at the Earth, the beam would only hit part of it. That is what a satellite's footprint is. So LEO, you have constellation of satellites, many satellites linked surrounding the Earth. GEO, further away, bigger, more powerful, pointing at a particular surface of the Earth. Right, then we go on to high altitude platforms, or HAPS. Now these are in high orbit, but they're not actually in space. They work a similar way to a satellite. They are relaying signals over a geographic area. So that's what high altitude platforms are. It's another way of doing it. So they're lower to the Earth. Now, being lower to the Earth does have advantages. Advantages such as lower latency, because a radio signal takes time to be beamed up and beamed down. It's just physics. So being closer does have advantages. Right, tethered UAVs. These are again vehicles, but they're tethered. They're held in position, and they're up in the sky, if you like, and they're relaying signals. So they're working in similar ways. These HAPS, these UAVs, these satellites, they're all having a signal beamed up to them, and they're relaying it back over a geographical area. That's what NTNs are. Network in the sky, if you like, or in space. So NTNs cover remote, rural and oceanic or disaster hit zones. So we're just going on to the next slide. The problem, pre-standardization. So before the 3GPP organization, there was a fragmented satellite ecosystem. So satellites used proprietary systems. There was no standardization. You had therefore expensive hardware, no compatibility with mobile devices, and no global scale. The breakthrough. 3GPP release 17. Now, as you'll realise, there's been a number of releases, and standards releases are done on quite a regular basis, typically sort of every 15 months. So from release 17, which came out a few years ago, I think it was 2022, it was a game changer for NTNs. Now, NTN support was added for the global 5G standard. And also, direct-to-device connectivity was possible. Now, direct-to-device, I've got a standard mobile phone here, and direct-to-device is where a satellite communicates directly to a standard mobile phone, rather than a specialist satellite phone. And this is a new technology which is rapidly expanding and offers great possibilities for business expansion, to reach more customers due to more people being connected. Because currently, the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, estimate that 2.6 billion people, roughly a third of the planet, aren't connected to the internet. So obviously that's got huge potential, because part of the problem at the moment is it's not cost effective to put in terrestrial, that's ground based infrastructure to make your mobile phone connect to the internet. So direct to device will certainly help, and in fact my TEDx talk that I did was partly on direct to device, but it was more from a humanitarian aspect about increasing opportunities and access to education. But it can also be used to improve, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's economic empowerment, and there's a lot of business use cases and a lot of new markets opening up. If we've got connectivity everywhere, remember that 2.6 billion people I mentioned, if they're connected and they're able to work, just think of the economic possibilities for your business. Right, so another thing really in 3GPP release 17 was a seamless switch between terrestrial and satellite. Now, we're already starting to see this with limited direct-to-device connectivity, where you can have worldwide text services and it can switch between satellite and terrestrial. Direct to device, which I didn't mention, not only text based but also worldwide phone calls and worldwide 5G broadband anywhere is on the way. So it's a game changer. So no more satellite only phones. As I said previously, satellite phones existed, but it was a specialist unit, not a standard mobile phone. Right. So release 18 and beyond. So we're into this now. What's the releases are regular, and what we're getting is we've got 5G advanced features for NTNs. So the standards are developing to include 5G, as I mentioned earlier. That 5G is coming sort of direct to device, enabling internet everywhere, connecting more people, creating business opportunities. Full IoT integration. Now, for those of you that don't know what IoT is, it stands for Internet of Things. Think sensors on cows monitoring agriculture, facilities management, monitoring equipment, and signals can then be connected. Well, they can be connected terrestrial, but they can connect to satellites, and therefore you've got worldwide monitoring of assets. So another benefit to business, something you need to know about. Higher data capacity from space, more data. The new standards allowing for higher output data capacity, so more data being able to move between the Earth-based assets and space. That's something else that came up with release 18 and onwards. And also release 18, the foundation for 6G satellite support. Now 6G is something I won't go into here, but it's being developed and it's even more exciting. Like a lot of technology, it's rapidly expanding. Think back 20 years ago and think what we've got now. Now think forward another 20 years or even another 2 years. Technology is rapidly advancing. You need to keep up to date with this stuff, and I can help you with that. You've probably heard of Moore's law, where they reckon the power of a computer doubles every 2 years and the price halves. Now that's just one example. This technology is evolving all the time, and that's what I do. I keep an eye on it and help people keep up to speed. Right. Business impact. Why this matters to senior leaders? Because I've targeted this webinar at senior leaders, people that need to make decisions that will affect their company strategically and for your bottom line, your profitability. So why this matters to senior leaders: lower infrastructure and device costs, enhanced resilience in emergencies. So if you're involved in something that you could possibly get in, your business is possibly involved in something that might have an emergency aspect to it. It gives you reliability. Right, let's put this a better way. If you're relying solely on terrestrial systems on the Earth, your communications, and they go down, you need a backup. In satellite communications, when I was working for a company that built and launched geostationary satellites, well, these satellites are the best part of 36,000 kilometers from the Earth. So you have what's known as redundancy. You have backup systems. If one fails, you haven't scrapped the satellite, because you can't really go and fix them because they're so far away. It's the same really in general for your business. You need resilience. You need a backup system. So this is what we space communications and non-terrestrial networks can provide a backup to your ground-based systems. Next thing, scalable IoT. Remember IoT, Internet of Things, in hard-to-reach areas. So I said you can use IoT for sort of asset monitoring in facilities management, or cattle on a farm for monitoring their health or their location. Now, in hard to reach places, as I mentioned earlier, you may not have good connectivity to the internet using terrestrial or ground-based systems. That's where satellite comes in, because, as I said earlier, especially with the low Earth orbit satellite constellations covering the whole of the Earth, you then are able to use IoT in remote locations. It's no longer a barrier. So we and finally support global ESG and inclusion goals. Strategic use cases. So strategic opportunities enabled by NTNs. Health and emergency services. Marine logistics. Remote education, which I touched on earlier. Defence grade network resilience. Again, resilience, backup, redundancy systems. If one system fails, you need a backup. A bit like, imagine you're driving along the road and you get a puncture in your car tyre and you don't have a spare tyre. Redundancy is in effect like having someone just going, no problem, here's another car, identical, it'll do the same thing, here you go, we'll fix your car later, off you go. Instantaneous. That'd be marvellous, wouldn't it? So the systems carry on going. So, and finally, there is a strategic opportunity for agriculture and climate monitoring using satellite communications or non-terrestrial networks. So, looking ahead. What are my slides? That doesn't quite right. Executive takeaways. Let's go on to here. So, mobile and satellite networks are converging. Standardization means lower costs for you and your business. And you can now reach remote areas affordably. Standard smartphones will work via satellite. There's already text-based services, and this is rolling out to be full 5G connectivity anywhere. So at the moment you can even be in some parts of England where I'm based and you can't get connectivity. Just imagine you're in a remote rainforest. You won't have that at the moment. You won't have any connectivity unless you use a specialist satellite phone, but standard smartphones will be all you need. Therefore, empowering new markets and new access to new workers. It's gonna be massive, a game changer. Remember, I said 2.6 billion people aren't currently connected, according to the ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union. They soon potentially will be. It's rather simplistic for me to say they will be, but because obviously there's the economic factors, but a lot more people will be coming online, and this is a business opportunity. Strategic advantage for resilience and inclusion. Well, that means that as far as including people that aren't connected and getting them connected, that's coming, and that is good for the world. I don't think it's a good situation, especially with AI and all this change is happening in what you could call the Western countries, or the developed countries. That'd be a better word, because obviously the Eastern countries developed as well. With AI, we're in danger of leaving people behind, and the digital divide getting bigger, because some people who haven't got the internet certainly won't be benefiting from AI. But as I said, direct to device via NTNs connected to a standard mobile phone. This is something that's coming. This is something you need to be looking out for to see how your business can take advantage of it. Right. So, closing and contacts. Let's make connectivity global, resilient and inclusive. That is something that I'm quite passionate about from the education point of view, but from a business point of view, I think the key takeaway here is that having more increased global connectivity, connecting the unconnected, is a business opportunity, which if you don't look into it, I'm sure your competitors will. Okay, so I'm Craig Miles, PGCE. I put that on partly because, as I said earlier, if I just put Craig Miles and you type it into the internet, you tend to come up with a cricketer or some guy that makes funny videos. So I stuck my teaching qualification on, which usually gets you to the right place. Or you could try Craig John Miles. I seem to be the only one with that name that's on the internet. I'm the founder of Yesway Communications, helping senior leaders make sense of emerging tech. My email is craig.miles@yesway.co.uk and my main website is craigjohnmiles.com. Okay, you'll also see there's a Yesway logo because that's the, well, as I said, that's the name of my business. You can also find that online quite easily. Thanks for listening, and any questions, just ask. Thanks very much.